Our next guest has been making waves in the world of TV and movies, a UFC Fight of the Night and Knockout of the Night winner. It's a pleasure to welcome Tim Kennedy back to Submission Radio.
Hello.
That's your signature entrance when you come onto the show, Tim. It's great to have you back. You know, it's never been a secret that you're great in front of a camera and obviously on any kind of audio. One of the projects we briefly touched on when you were on the show last was a TV show where you went around the world to track down war criminals. Couldn't really discuss it then, but now that it's been some time, can you tell us about the experience?
Yeah, the experience was amazing. The places I went were beautiful, and the show is seeming to be a huge success. It debuts in the United States in whatever 2.5 weeks, and it's been released in Canada and some of Europe, and everybody loves it. So this is all good things.
Yeah. Well, we can imagine some of these situations can get pretty dangerous. Did you have any crazy moments on the show that you can share with us?
I was in Argentina, and we were looking for, we were trying to track down actually a Nazi. And we were interviewing some guys, and there was this particular ranch that was of interest to us. And when we rolled up, some guys they obviously were expecting us. It's kind of difficult being in South America, especially in secluded areas, to be, a 230-pound American, with a pretty horrible American Spanish accent. And so as I was coming to the ranch, these guys on mopeds cruise up to us, and they have machetes, and they're like, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" And that was no different from countless times of us being followed by guys. It was pretty sketchy. It's a very secretive community. The Germans in Argentina, and they definitely take care of their own.
Germans in Argentina. We can imagine you'd stick out like a sore thumb, Tim. Any times where you had to wear like a fake mustache and put on like a really bad accent?
Well, I already had the bad accent, so there was no need to put it on. Came quite natural. My Spanish is horrible. It's barely discernible. And I don't think there's any way to hide like who I am.
The whiteness.
Yeah.
Well, we know you're a lethal weapon, but did you have any backup in case things went downhill? And did you ever get recognized at any moment when capturing these criminals? Like, oh, hey, you're Tim Kennedy from the UFC.
Right. Sometimes I use that. In some cases, there's a culture of, especially with the Nazis, all the way going back to the origin, the genesis of who they were as a party and as a people. It all began with them being tough guys at political events. So being a fighter and going to some of the jiu-jitsu and boxing clubs down in Argentina, and just say, hey, I'm Tim Kennedy. I'm here trying to enjoy South America, but I got to train when I'm down here. They just welcomed me in. I'd be able to get some more information.
Yeah, we can imagine that it's going to be a pretty exciting show. We can't wait to see it. Now, there's also some rumors about you being a zombie in a movie. What information can you share with us about the project? And also, is a zombie Tim Kennedy more dangerous than a human one?
Thankfully, I was not a zombie. I was part of the the hero group that were combating zombies. We had the main cast of 4 guys, and they were kind of military degenerates that, I think they were at a strip club just doing a bunch of cocaine and things off of strippers' butts or whatnot.
Nice.
And they wake up the next morning in the drunk tank. One guy has a sex doll that is super glued to his body. And, they're not, and outside of the jail, they hear what is the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. They don't know if they caused it or if they're now just destined to be the heroes of the world. And we have the super zombies. We have Phil Davis, Randy Couture, Danny Trejo, Josh Thompson, Yves Edwards, Keith Jardine. And we're like the biggest, baddest zombies on, this post-apocalyptic planet. And then we have the guys that are trying to survive and figure out if, maybe they contracted a sexually transmitted disease the night before.
You're pretty much describing Dennis and my typical weekend, except we're never any heroes, and we never fight Phil Davis or Keith Jardine. But you mentioned military degenerates. Recently, you tweeted out, evidently ISIS has a hit list. I was surprised to find out that I'm not on it. I plan to pick up my game a bit. #goals. Why were you surprised that your name was omitted? Have you done anything to piss off ISIS?
Dude, I have done so much. I don't know what else I need to do to get appreciated. You know, like I mean, apart from like burning a Quran or something like that, and that's not really how I roll. I pretty much stand for everything that they hate, and I really try to exemplify that. You know, so I was posting pictures and videos of, you know, eating bacon and dancing with the Holy Bible, you know, making out with my beautiful wife in a bikini, you know, letting my daughters go to school, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, like all the things that they hate that are important, you know, like my Constitution, for instance. And man, I just can't. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a graduated response thing. Right now, I've been operating at like a 5 or a 6. So I'm gonna kick it up to a 7 or an 8 next week, and see if, you know, I can maybe get a little more momentum going into the ISIS hate category.
Yeah. Wow, well, we can't wait to see what you do there. I mean, on a more serious note, what are your thoughts on how the ISIS situation is actually being handled at the moment? And what would you do if you were in the position of the US president to combat that situation? Because there's a lot of people dying in the region. There's a lot of innocent families, young children, mothers, daughters, that kind of thing being tied up in this whole situation in that country. It seems like a horrible, horrible situation.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible. You know, I hate the question in the first place because you're like, you know, if you were the president, what would you do? Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, you know, we caused it. You know, we created a void. We made a vacuum, and then we pulled all of the infrastructure out, which was the U.S. military forces. And, you know, like, we had a guy standing behind a podium saying, you know, making speeches about what he was going to do, and he didn't care what the consequences were. And, you know, he followed through with what he said he was going to do, which was taking troops out of Iraq, which is exactly what he did. And by doing that, he created this opportunity for exactly what manifested there, which was ISIS. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we caused it. You know, the president pulled all of U.S. forces out, well, not all, but pulled the vast majority of U.S. forces out of Iraq. And by doing that, created you know, it's like going to Chicago, which is a super dangerous city now because there's no guns, and then saying, hey, police officers, you all can leave. And then hopefully no organized crime will take your place, which obviously is naive and ignorant, and that's exactly what would happen in a matter of hours. So what do we do? Take the leash off. You know, they're talking like for al-Assad, for instance. There was a base I was stationed at in Iraq. And they're saying ISIS has it surrounded. Well, al-Assad is a base that currently houses like a couple thousand Marines. Mm-hmm. If you just airdrop a few pallets of ammo to the Marines and were like, hey, go take back the entire country of Iraq, they would do it. And they would do it pretty quick. And so it's naive to think that by any means we couldn't defeat ISIS, but if we just let them do what they're doing, it's just going to get worse. Today, for instance, U.S. Special Forces went in and rescued 70 people that were about to be executed, mass genocide. They were in a camp in northern Iraq. U.S. Army Special Operations went in, killed the terrorists, rescued all 70 people. Now, That was about 40 U.S. Special Operations guys. You know, so you can understand the vastness of how powerful U.S. Special Operations is. That's about 1/1000th of what our group is. If you take that regiment and you're like, all right, we're going to take the leash off, go kill ISIS, problem solved in 6 months.
What do you think about Russia's...
There'd be a lot of dead bodies.
Yeah, of course. And you know what? We're the furthest thing from political experts. So in a lot of ways, you're kind of enlightening us. But, you know, what do you think about Russia's involvement? Because everyone's kind of saying, hey, you know, the US was doing their thing for a while. Now Russia stepped in. It seems like they're cleaning things up in a lot quicker time than what, you know, the US is going to do. What do you think? Is it a good thing that Russia's getting involved now?
Oh my God! So there's this video on YouTube explaining the dynamics of the Syrian, Russian, American, Iraqi relationship, and it is mind-boggling. You know, it's not something that like the enemy of our enemy is our friend. If only it were that simple. You know, they're destabilizing intentionally the infrastructure to create an opportunity to put into power somebody that they can manipulate, so that they can perhaps increase their effect in the region. All the while, I mean, so, bro, there are so many little pawns being played, and everybody watching every bit of news right now are just victims to the guys moving the rooks and the bishops on the board.
How much just a quick question, Tim, how much of a factor do you think media plays into this whole ISIS thing? Because when you go and you turn on the news, a lot of stories focus on sort of the terror aspect of it. And there's a debate going around that. In that regard, the media is doing what the ISIS wants them to do, which is scare people around the world, sort of make them freak out about it, make them think that, you know, terrorists coming to their country. I know it's happening a lot, even here in Australia. Do you think the media is helping the cause, or do you think it's actually helping ISIS a little bit in a lot of ways?
So terrorism, in definition, is being able to achieve something through force or fear, right? And when you have the media that is perpetuating the aspect of fear, they want the sensationalistic pulp fiction perspective on something. So they report on the violence, they report on the horrors, and that's what sells. You know, like they're not going to talk about how beautiful the roses are, you know, in D.C. in the Rose Garden. They're going to talk about how many people were murdered, and by doing that, they're perpetuating the exact intent of ISIS. So the news right now, that's what I said. I said, if you're watching the news, you're just a pawn to a whole bunch of people moving the rooks, bishops on board. They're truly, by definition, enabling the terrorists. You know, this news cycle that, you know, occurs every 6 hours, that cycle, they're just giving the opportunity, the outlet for the terrorists to instill fear. Until people respond with, you know, I'm not scared and that doesn't faze me, and you know, you can come and try that here with mine. You know, it's with mine and my family. It's going to be a different story. You know, you think the rules of engagement in Iraq are going to apply in the United States? It's not the case. You know, if they came here and tried any of that, it would be a vastly different story.
Well, we're going to switch gears just a little bit, Tim, and we'll talk about MMA in just a second. But just you're probably the perfect person to speak to about in regards to this subject, just because it is about guns. You recently tweeted, to prevent a mass shooting, we either have to provide the help they need before it starts, or the ability to stop them after it starts. It's an interesting statement, as mass shootings kind of happen almost every week, this year. Can you go into your statement a little bit? What do you think is the solution there?
Two common themes have occurred here. One, the people that are doing these need mental help. They need medical experts and treatment, and it's not there. The second part that has reoccurred in every single one of these instances is how the person was stopped. They were stopped with a gun. So, one, to prevent it from happening, we have to create the resources and the facilities and the acceptance in society that can help these people that feel alone, that are depressed, that are dependent, that seriously need medical help. It's not the way that especially our medical system works. It's broken on many different levels. We have broken insurance companies. We have broken federal insurance plans. It is very difficult to get treatment, especially in mental health care. There's a lot of reservations and apprehensions about seeking help, because once you're identified, it vastly changes what you can do with your life from that point forward. So we have to have a paradigm shift about how we treat and how we help people that are struggling. The other option and the other unfortunate side to that, so that's prevention. The other side is response. The response to stop these people is arming, and people are freaking out, I know. The only way these people have ever been stopped is with a gun. The last one, for instance, where how many shots did that guy get off? 2 or 3 before somebody came up and shot him. So this is the tragic side of it. You say, oh, let's just outlaw guns. You know what? We outlawed heroin and cocaine in the United States. I can walk down the street and score both in a matter of minutes. And it's been outlawed for forever. It's impossible at this point to just say, oh, guns won't exist in the United States because we're going to pass legislation. We have plenty of laws in place. We have gun control in place. They have to be enforced to make sure that the right people have guns. And then make sure on the prevention side that medical and psychological resources are available for people that need help. I have to call man, you kept bringing up, like, hey, can you solve the Syria problem for me? No, dude, not on a radio interview. You can't do it. How about gun control? Can you talk to us about mass shootings? Yeah, I can talk to you about it, but we're not going to solve it. It's good. It's not something. These are very complex issues that I have a lot of opinions about, but we're not going to be able to figure them out here.
Sure.
So we're not solving them today. I guess it's interesting to get your perspective though, Tim, because obviously we love chatting to people about things other than MMA. Just one last question. Obviously, everywhere you go, you have a knife, a gun, and I believe your phone, because you're ready for anything to happen. And you're a guy that's trained very well in mixed martial arts, MMA. You're a lethal weapon. Why do you feel like you need to go around with that kind of stuff on you all the time?
Because I'm actually protecting me. I'm protecting mine. I have here where I am right now, I have my 13-year-old daughter that's at her swim practice. Over my right arm, I have my bag that has my gun in it. Like, that's permanent. I think I'm one of the baddest dudes on the planet. And I'm fast, I'm athletic, I'm strong. Dude, I don't move faster than 2,800 feet per second, and that's how fast a bullet goes. I know I hit, my fists are probably harder than 99% of the planet, but they're not harder than 168 grains of lead. There's an old American saying from a Western gun manufacturer. He said that I think it was the Browning made all men equal, and he was talking about specifically about one gun. He said the introduction to the gun made all men equal. So it doesn't matter how strong I am or how big I am, how fast I am, how trained I am. It takes one punk to walk up with a gun. It changes the chemistry of everything. So unless I want to stand here and be a victim, unless I want to just sit here and let my 13-year-old daughter, be a victim of somebody's own problems, I'm going to take, the necessary steps to ensure that me and my family are taken care of and that they're safe. They feel safe. And that there's, without a doubt, no safer place in the world than with about a few hundred meters of meat. So, if you're worried about your family, you just come on, hang around me and mine, because we're pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we'll get off the sort of hard topics. And really, Tim, we really appreciate insight on these subjects. We jump over to MMA. You recently welcomed Johny Hendricks to the middleweight division on Twitter. Could he lure Tim Kennedy back in the octagon for another fight? Could it be you versus Johny Hendricks that we might see soon?
Oh, that'd be a fun one. Do you think he could make 185 pounds?
Well, it'd be easier than 170, right?
Well, you say that, but, I mean, when he was getting ready to cut to 170, he didn't even make it past, 187, right? Like, he was cutting, and he was at 187, and they're like, whoa, you can't cut anymore, bro. You're getting sick. I think 185 might be a test for him. There are a lot of other guys in the division that I'd be more excited to fight, to include Anderson Silva, who will be coming off a suspension for performance-enhancing drugs. The winner of Vitor Belfort, Dan Henderson, that'd be a fun fight. Gets two legends. Both of them love the TRT. Leo Machida, Nick Diaz. I mean, those are some fun fights that Johny Hendricks would be, I think, a harder fight than all four of those. But it would be a fight that I'd be excited for, regardless.
Sorry to cut in there, Des. Why? Why is Johny Hendricks harder than all of them? I mean, he's obviously up there in 170, former champion, but, going up in the weight class, why is he harder?
I think he's better. I mean, of all those guys I just listed, I think Johny Hendricks is better than most of them. So he would be, especially stylistically for me, two wrestlers with heavy hands. Stylistically, it's against especially compared to Vitor Belfort or Anderson Silva, both of who I think would be very easy fights for me. Style-wise, Johny is a little bit more difficult.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up styles because obviously one of the guys that you want to fight, Dan Henderson, was speaking to MMA Fighting, and he said, well, on fighting with you, I wasn't overly interested in fighting Tim. I liked him. He represents the sport well. And, I just don't think that would be an exciting fight for the fans just with his style in mind. I mean, what do you think about those comments? What is it about Dan that makes him... Why do you think Dan thinks that you two wouldn't make a good fight? Because to a lot of people, that would be a great fight.
Yeah, and I'm a bad matchup for Dan. That's if we just get down to it, and it's not stylistically, he's not going to take me down. His wrestling's not good enough to stop my takedown, and fundamentally, I'm a better striker than he is. So he really has one shot, and that's going to be his big right hand H-bomb. So, and that's getting slower as is, weaker with his age, as his chin is. So it's, I don't know. We're kind of both like go America type guys. So, that's not cool to like go American type guys fighting each other. But I think the foundation for what he was saying was, I don't want to fight Tim because it's a bad matchup for me. I don't know how I'm going to beat him besides maybe landing a lucky punch.
Right. Well, obviously he's fighting Vitor Belfort. You said you'd be happy to verse, either Dan or Vitor himself, the winner of that fight. Vitor's been in some controversy again with reports saying that he fought at UFC 152 despite testing positive for elevated testosterone or high levels. A lot of people believe it could have been a cover-up by the UFC. What did you make of the whole situation?
Oh, he's a cheater. He's always been a cheater. He's been cheating since he was like 19 years old. I think he failed his first steroid test when he was like 20 or something. That's crazy. Now he's old as hell, and he's still cheating. So I don't know why people are acting surprised. I think the biggest story of this is that the UFC, potentially covered this up for him to go ahead and fight in a main event fight. That's a tragedy. There's no surprise that Vitor Belfort's cheating. He's always been cheating. There's no surprise there. Like, the guy's been cheating for forever. So all you guys that love Vitor Belfort because he has all these fantastic, fun-to-watch knockouts, guess what? He's a cheater. Nothing's ever changed about him. I mean, you've seen some things that maybe evolve in his game slightly. The only thing that stayed true is he's always cheated. So, I don't know. No surprise there besides the UFC maybe covering it up.
Yeah, it was an interesting situation. I mean, while on the topic of the UFC, obviously a lot of people know you had some criticisms over the new Reebok deal. You said on Twitter, thanks, but I'll pass on the $2,500 generous offer. In regards to what you would make in sponsorship money, I'm just wondering, obviously the UFC is not happy with guys going against the grain when it comes to Reebok. Have you had any backlash from them about some of your comments against the new Reebok deal?
I don't think I've fought yet. I think it's been a year since I fought. I don't know if that's... So, I don't know. Maybe?
Because we had Josh Koscheck on the show, and he basically said he said some negative comments, and Dana White called him up and had some negative things to say to him about it. And we're just wondering, did you get any calls? Did maybe Dana have a chat with you about it? Because we've heard that a lot of fighters have been getting some backlash from the UFC about the negativity towards Reebok.
What are you going to say to me? You're like, if I say, hey, this is how much I made in my last fight in sponsorship money. Here's how much I made in my last Strikeforce fight with sponsorship money. Here's how much I made in a title fight in Strikeforce. And this is how much I'm going to make now with the new Reebok deal. Like, how can you argue that? Because obviously, I'm not an idiot. I'm a good businessman. I own a bunch of businesses. And they're like, oh, Tim, you're a liar. I'm like, oh, well, tough luck, dude. Here's my income tax statement, and it's every one of my forms of income is listed in this fantastic, QuickBooks spreadsheet that I'll provide to the public. Like, you can't call bullshit on me because everything I say is true. So then you're just gonna have pie in your face. So I'm kind of like a tough one to, like, yeah, maybe you could call me and say, hey, we don't appreciate those comments. Could you tone it down a little bit? But you also know that I'm always going to speak my mind. Like, how are you going to tell a guy that always going to say what he thinks to be true to shut up? Because that's just not how he rolls. I don't know. It's a tough tough thing when you got me on your roster.
Well, here's some truth, and speaking of you being on the roster, your Reebok fighter kit still isn't available on the Reebok website. Why is that?
Ooh, I think they pulled it right when I started talking that I was like super ugly and overpriced, and then I only get like 70 cents for every kit that's sold or something horrific.
Wow, 70 cents. Is that true? Really, only 70 cents?
Well, I'm not sure if they've ever sold a single one of my fighter kicks, but I've definitely never gotten a check from them. And we are still looking at the merchandise agreement, trying to just figure out what we would actually get if we got anything from the sale of a Tim Kennedy fighter kit. So there's actually a really good chance that if, let's say, 1 million people bought the Tim Kennedy fighter kit T-shirt, I might not get any money at all. You could imagine that.
Wow.
And imagine if somebody bought one of the only ones that existed before it was pulled. It would be like a MMA memorabilia piece that's worth millions of dollars one day on eBay. Now, one of you're friends with Scott Coker, and many people believe that you're likely to go over and fight with him once you're done with the UFC. Let me ask you, Tim, if you weren't obligated to still be with the UFC because of your contract, would we be right in thinking you would have jumped over to Bellator already? Or are we misinterpreting the whole situation?
Oh, I don't think you're misinterpreting it. Scott's awesome. I love fighting for Scott. Scott was fun. Scott made exciting fights. Scott made entertaining fights. It wasn't quite pride, but it was the best that you could do without having a bunch of guys hopped up on every single steroid to keep their hands on. Which is what Strikeforce was. There was an opportunity for people that like to entertain to really put on display their skill set. If I wasn't contractually obligated to the UFC, would I go fight for Scott Coker? I think I definitely would. I love that guy, loved fighting for him, and kind of miss those days.
I'm just curious, how many fights do you have left in your current UFC contract?
Oh, I cannot definitely discuss specifics of my contract.
Okay, gotcha.
That would be a bummer.
Well, you recently stayed on the Three Amigos podcast. You still train 2 to 3 times a day. It's a pretty rigorous schedule for someone that doesn't have a fight lined up. Why do you train so much? And is that some sort of indication that you may return soon if you get the right call with the right fight? You may be fighting soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I'm gonna post like a picture tonight or tomorrow. Like, I'm probably in the best shape of my life right now.
We saw the zombie photos, and you looked pretty in shape there.
Oh no, those are like covered in blood photos. Wait until I'm like picking up a 260-pound dude over my head. The photos. So I'm faster and stronger. Actually, today set a new record in one of the measurements that we take for the professional athletes at the gym I train at on it, and I reset my own record today. So I'm still getting faster. I'm still getting stronger, and I'm still hoping that one of these guys grow a set of balls and actually shoot yes.
Well, yeah, certainly. And I mean, the big fight that could happen is obviously Anderson Silva's coming back at the start of next year. You mentioned Anderson earlier on in this interview. If the UFC does give you that offer to fight Anderson upon his return, is that a fight that would pull you out of, the break that you're taking? Would you definitely take that fight? And would that be a fight that you'd look forward to having?
Yes, I would definitely take that fight. That is a fight I would absolutely look forward to taking, and I would put a beating on him in moments.
Awesome. Well,
Chris White. Oh yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So much fun. No, I'm saying. I was just gonna say like a whole bunch of like tough guys. That's really not necessary. I think you guys got it. I'd beat him up.
Sure. Well, Tim, we honestly can't wait to see who you get matched up with next. Hopefully, we'll see you back in the octagon sooner or later, or at least in a cage, if you get what I'm saying. Don't forget to follow Tim on Twitter at Tim Kennedy MMA to see all his goodness. He posts hilarious stuff on Instagram. It's actually a hilarious photo of Tim Kennedy joking about Lyoto Machida, and it's urine related. So definitely check that out. Tim, as always, thanks so much for coming on the show and chatting with us. Sorry about the heavy stuff.
Dude. No, yeah. Fun, awesome interview every time. It's fantastic. TV show coming out next month. Watch it. It's called Hunting Hitler. And then watch my movie next year, Range 15. It'll be stupid. It's going to be so stupid. I can't even tell you how stupid it's going to be.
That's the one with Danny Trejo and everyone else, right? Range 15?
Oh, my God, yeah. Yes, that's the one. William Shatner as who's the guy with the gigantic penis? I mean, just a
Luke
huge one.
Rockhold.
No, I don't know. I don't know about that. Ron Jeremy. That's the porn star. Oh, he's in it. David, everyone is in this movie. It's insane. Anyways, thanks for having me.